Welcome back, everybody, to Pure Picks. Joined here by my man Gerard. How you doing today, Gerard?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. It was a great card.
Yeah, very action-packed, really exciting card. Before we get into the Paul Craig and Brendan Allen Fight Night card, wanted to just do a little bit of a recap for UFC 295. Overall, not the best showing as far as some of our plays. We had some losers, some winners. Wanted to go over them though, just because, once again, always a great time to go over this educational aspect of the game, right? Always want to learn and improve for next time. So, for some of your plays, actually, would you like to go over some of your plays as far as what kind of went right or wrong for you, and what kind of areas that you could potentially improve upon, or anything at all for the pure pickers out there?
So, what kind of went right for me as far as the card? My picks were basically spot on, except for just two fights, basically. So, I had Jamal Emmers, Joshua Van, Jared Gordon, um, Benoit Saint Denis, and Alex Pereira. They were in multiple two leg parlays that were hitting, but I think a good chunk of my bets were missing on the two picks that winded up being bad for the day, which was Mackenzie Dern and Sergey Pavlovich. So those were the only two I got wrong for the night, but my unit sizing for the card were kind of on the heavier side on those two. So
Let's see.
that's what kind of messed up the day, even though I had most of the picks right. But yeah, this was a fun card. Just gotta think about like the unit sizing and going too heavy on certain plays on a card like this.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, unit sizing is something that very important part of actually making money, right? You can break down a fight, you can break down all these cards really well, but if you don't know how to actually play them, that's where some people get trapped in. So I'm glad that you realize that sometimes maybe we should realize if, maybe we should size down on certain plays or size up on certain plays. Maybe that's going to cause us to get more of a positive outcome at the end of the day. So I think that's a good lesson to learn right there. But overall, like you mentioned, I mean, I think we got most of the card right as far as some of the picks. Just for me personally, I think the first one right off the bat that I got wrong was Jamal Emmers by decision. I knew that Jamal Emmers was going to win, but I didn't know that Dennis was going to, kind of take one of the first punches to his face and just kind of get knocked out right there. So, yeah, my bad on. I did not believe that he was that bad, but it turns out he is that bad. So that was one of the wrong picks that I had. Next time, if I know that Jamal Emmers is that much of a lock, what might as well just stick him in that parlay, right? Which I did, by the way. But I also played his prop by decision, so that's where I went wrong there. Other than that, I mean, kind of similar to you. I had Joshua Van, I had Sexy Mexi, Jared Gordon. That was the other fight that kind of messed me up as well. Instead of playing Jared Gordon, which I said in the video, the breakdown last week, I said he was my lock, but I played the over 2.5 for some reason in the parlays, and that's where it messed me because all Mark Manson did was just take a very weak punch to the chin, and that was all she wrote for Mark Manson. So I overestimated Mark Manson's durability in that sense. Very big mistake by me. I think that, backing a fighter's durability at 39 years old, maybe not the best recipe in the future. So that's something that I'll take into account. The other play that I had also was Slava Claus money line. I think that that was overall still a decent play, especially at dog odds. At certain points in that fight, I mean, it looked like he was a heavy favorite. I remember some of the live lines were like minus 400, like 800, something like that for Slava Claus. So he was winning the majority of that fight, but he did get caught in round two, and that's where it kind of changed everything, right? Slav Klaus won round three, and then potentially he could have got 10-8 on the second round, but that's how they end up with a draw there. So I still think that was a decent value play there with dog odds for Slava Claus. Turns out to be a draw and a push, and we'll take that as long as it's not a negative outcome. We're good with that. And my last one of my two of my last plays were Lupi Godinez by decision. That was a lock from me. I really loved the value of that part on that decision prop. I think it was a minus 120 or so when I got in. So that was a pretty good dub there. I don't understand why that was a split, by the way. I think one judge gave it to Tabitha Ricci 30-27. So you know that's a scam judge scorecard there. So I wouldn't worry too much about that split decision. To me, it looked like Luby won 29-28 easy. And then the other prop that I hit was Steve Erkseg, Alessandro Costa over 2.5. And that played out to be true. Both guys are really durable. I think both guys they did take a lot of punches to the face, a lot of strikes, but they also implemented a lot of grappling for both of them. So I think that played a really heavy part in our prop going over there. So overall, not the greatest night and not the worst night, right? I ended up kind of breaking even overall, but I think that those were just things that I learned throughout the fight and throughout the fight card, and I'll take those lessons into account for the next fight card, which we're going to break down right now. It's going to be Brendan Allen versus Paul Craig at UFC Fight Night Vegas. So let's just get started as far as that fight card. I mean, I think that this fight card is really, I think they have like 14 fights on this fight card, right? So they're really action packed. I think the reason why they're kind of stuffing all these fights on this fight card is that it's the end of the year and a lot of people have kind of like contractual obligations, right? Some of these fighters might not have fought for a very long time, and they're trying to get more fights under their belt for the contract. That's why we're seeing so many fights throughout I think for the rest of this year. So it's going to be a treat for us. We're going to get some more fights and just some more fights to analyze as well. Let's start off with the first fight right here. We have Lucas Alexander versus Jeka Saragih. Lucas Alexander, featherweight 8-3. He is 4-1 in his last five. He's coming off of that decision win over Steven Peterson, 28 years old, fighting against Jeka. Also, kind of a 13-3 record, 4-1 his last five. He's coming off of that kind of an embarrassing loss, in my opinion, to Anshu Jubilee. He's also 28 years old. Lucas will be the bigger person here. He's going to be 3 inches taller, and then he also has a 4-inch height or 4-inch reach advantage here. Gerard, I'll let you go ahead and take this one off, and I'll share my thoughts for this fight for the at the end. What do you think about this fight between Lucas Alexander and Jeka here?
I think Lucas Alexander, he's going to be the more technical striker here. He'll probably fighting more on the outside and picking apart Jeka. But my only concern here is that Jeka, he does throw pretty hard, and we've only seen him have trouble really against some grappling and wrestlers in Jubilee. And I guess same thing with Lucas Alexander. He was kind of just bum rushed by Brito, then ended up getting a submission loss with I think it was a rear naked choke. Um, and this fight, I don't think either fighter is going to need to worry about grappling too much in terms of a ground game and wrestling and finding positions and getting out of submissions. So this is probably going to be a more of a stand up fight. And I think Lucas Alexander is probably the more well rounded fighter here, the more poised fighter. And I'm leaning Lucas Alexander here, but it's a low confidence for me. I think the line should actually be a little bit closer. Jeka does have some power and he throws with a lot of heat. He's just not the cleanest striker, where Lucas Alexander will be the more cleaner fighter here. So I'm leaning Lucas, but I think the odds should be much closer.
For sure. Do you have any kind of certain play for this fight or anything that you might be willing to potentially put your money on right now?
This one, I might just watch this. I'm not too confident in any plays here. And yeah, I'm not. sure either way if it goes to a decision or a finish either. But yeah, I'm just leaning Lucas, but I'm not sure yet.
Yeah, I actually have similar thoughts to you about this fight. I mean, Lucas, power striker, he also can throw in some flashy strikes more often than not, right? He also has some good kicks from the range, and I think he can also fight well in clinch and any kind of close pocket situations. I think it's a very similar kind of fight with the power aspect, right? Because Jeka is also a pretty powerful striker, mainly a headhunter, goes for the chin to get the KO. He does have a grappling kind of mix as well. I mean, I think he's a pretty average grappler. He does have 4 subs in his career. But if you look at his record and just kind of his overall record, he's fallen in love with his power over the last few fights. I think that he came off of like 3 or 4 straight KO wins, and then he fought Jubilee, and he also tried to knock out Jubilee, and that didn't work. But if you look at early on in his career, he does actually have some subs in his career, right? And he also was I think in one of his first fights in the road to UFC, I think he pulled off some takedowns as well. So he's one of those guys who's kind of fallen in love with his power coming off of a somewhat disappointing kind of loss to Jubilee. Unfortunately, I was on his side during that fight, and it was just a
Mm.
bad fight to watch because I mean, Jeka, it just seemed like he was very unprofessional in that fight. That's not the type of fighter that I would like to have my pick as, because it doesn't seem like he wants to win. He just wants to kind of make a show in a way. He's making like some strange faces during the fight and just overall just did not look good at all. Now, I'm not sure that Lucas is coming off the best win either, just because of the quality of his opponent. He fought Steven Peterson, who like way past his prime, and Steven Peterson actually retired after the loss. So I don't know if that's the best opponent to come on after the win. My pick here, and just by the way, I think I need to tell you guys the odds right now. Lucas Alexander on Bet Online, it's minus 450 right now. He opened up at minus 150. I agree with Gerard that that line is a little wide. It's a little wild for a. It's going to be, I think, a mostly striking matchup, and both guys have power. Both guys have a power puncher's chance to end the fight. My pick here is going to be Jeka inside the distance. I think he is lived for a knockout or potentially a sub if he wants to reincorporate that back into his game. I think this is possible by low on Jeka as well. He's plus 350 right now. That's pretty good value for a fight that I cap closer to a pick'em kind of fight, right? I think that Lucas Alexander should be probably like maybe a 2-1 favorite, but I think man minus 450 is wild. So pick here is Jeka inside the distance, but like Gerard, I will pass on this fight for now because I will not trust Jeka with any money anymore, and I will just watch this fight and see what happens there. Let's go on to the next fight here. We have another matchup on the prelims. This is going to be Charles Johnson against Rafael Estevam. Now, Charles Johnson, energy, obviously, he is 13-5 right now. He is 2-3 in his last five, coming off of that decision loss to Cody Durden. 32 years old. He's fighting against Rafael here, 11-0, 5-0 in his last five. He's coming off of that ground and pound victory on the Contender Series. 27 years old, so he's going to be the younger fighter here as well. And odds for this fight, just to let you guys know, Rafael opened up at a minus 251. He actually got bet to an underdog at plus 110 for about a week or so, about a couple of weeks, and now he is settled back to minus 130. So that's a really interesting line movement there. I've actually broken down Charles a lot over the last couple of years. He's been pretty active, so it's been pretty easy to break down some of his tape. Charles Johnson, I mean, I think that he's a active striker. He likes to rely on his technique, if you will, as far as boxing. He also incorporates some kickboxing in there as well. And I think that he also tries to push on the pace to really get out decision victory most of the time. He does have some KOs on his record, but The KOs have usually come on later in the fights, like round three sometimes, or if he's fighting a round 5 round fight, like round four. 38% of his wins have come by KO. And outside of a quick KO of a washed Jimmy Flick, though, he really has been more of a point decision kind of fighter. He does not have the best takedown defense, as seen with his last fight. I think he was taken down like 10 times or so, 11 times against Cody Durden. But he does have a decent get up game. He can get back up and survive grappling exchanges. He has never been subbed, so that's a benefit for his style as well. He's never been subbed, and he's fought some absolute sub killers like Muhammad Mokaev, who took him down 12 times and didn't get the sub going. So very interesting skill set that he does have. He does have a tendency to get controlled for the majority of 15 minutes. So that's something to take a note of. Cody Durden was constantly wrestling him for 15 minutes and just controlled him pretty much for the whole fight. I think Cody Durden had like 9 minutes or 9 minutes and a half uh, of just control time. And I think that might be an issue in this fight just because Rafael is a high pressure fighter. He's an in your face wrestler who likes to throw with power, likes to set up his takedowns with this wild kind of style. He will commit to his pressure and power to drag you down to the ground. So he really likes to use his trips or just straight up use his brute strength and drag you down to the ground rather than doing the standard single legs or double legs, right? When he does get you to the ground, he has pretty good ground and pound as well. So that's I think that just the ground pound aspect and also having good control, just backpacking people sometimes. I think he's also pretty dangerous when he gets you down to the ground because he does hunt for subs. I'm leaning towards Rafael here. I mean, I think that Charles Johnson, he just hasn't really rubbed me the right way in most of his fights. He doesn't make people pay for shooting takedowns because people have just shot for takedowns a lot from this guy, and it just seems like they keep on shooting takedowns at will on him. And I think that he has a bad sense of urgency as well. My last straw for Charles Johnson was when he fought Ode Osborne. I mean, I think I was on the Charles Johnson side, and then I maybe like the day of the fight I flipped to Ode Osborne. But yeah, he just didn't have that killer instinct to win the fight, and I think that's something that you need to have, especially in the UFC. You need to have that will and desire and that sense of urgency to actually win the fight. So because of that, I'm going with Rafael by decision here. I'm probably going to look to attack that prop when it drops, and that will be my pick for the fight here. Gerard, what's your thoughts on this fight between Charles Johnson and Rafael here?
Charles Johnson is, I think he came up with a base of wrestling, so that makes sense why his takedown, I mean, his get up game is so good.
Mhm.
Um, he kind of reminds me of Bobby Green, who started off as a wrestler but fell in love with their striking, and he kind of has that slick striking type of style, like a Bobby Green, and he has quick reaction time from what I see. And Rafael Estevam, in terms of his pressure and his grappling, I'm not exactly sold on Estevam as much. I think I'm not sure if he's fought anybody like who has a slick type of striking style like a Charles Johnson here. And yeah, I'm also not sold on his takedown so much as well because his last fight against Elias kind of invited him to take him down, basically going for a submission and then getting on his back, and then Esteban was just on top controlling positions. So I couldn't really see too much of things that I could see Charles Johnson have trouble with because Charles Johnson has gone up against a Cody Durden and some other grapplers, and I'm not so sure Esteban is better than those guys. So if Charles Johnson is dog odds, I'll probably play Charles Johnson. I just think he has more experience, and I'm not sure of Rafael Esteban's striking striking skill. So I'm gonna lean on Charles Johnson. Low confidence. I think the energy might be coming out to get a bounce back win. I think he's due a win here. So I'll go with the more experienced Charles Johnson here.
For sure, yeah. And right now, like I mentioned earlier, Charles Johnson, he's actually at plus 110 right now. So could be pretty decent time to attack on those odds. He is dog odds, so yeah, could be good value if you're choosing that side. Next fight that we have on the prelims, it'll be Chad Anheliger versus Jose Johnson. This is very interesting fight as well. I think both these guys are, in terms of their fighting style, is kind of similar, although they have different kind of physical frames. Chad is 12-6. He is 4-1 in his last five. He's coming off of that loss against Ailin about a year ago. I think it was a decision loss. He's 36 years old, so he's a little old for being a quote unquote prospect here. He's fighting against Jose Johnson, 15-8, 3-2 in his last five, and he's coming off of that submission loss twister actually to Damon Blackshear. He's 28 years old, so he'd be the younger fighter here by 8 years, and also he's going to be the taller fighter, 6 foot compared to 5'6" for Chad, and the longer fighter as well. He has about a 7.5 inch reach advantage here. Fight odds for this fight are also pretty interesting as well. I think right now Chad is a plus 180. So he actually is an underdog. Opened up at plus 150, and now he's a plus 180. Jose Johnson right now is a minus 210. Troy, I'll let you break down this fight first, and then I'll share my thoughts later. What do you think about this fight between Chad and Jose here?
So Chad Anheliger, I think he's a pretty savvy vet. I think that and he's also pretty quick for his age. I think he kind of has that he can go in and out and mix it up. Um I think he can actually out vet Jose Johnson here, even though Jose Johnson's the more explosive long fighter. I'm not sure if Jose Johnson has the experience to beat a savvy vet in Chad Anheliger. I do think Jose Johnson's a step down from Alateng and Chad Anheliger had some pretty good exchanges versus Alateng and keeping Alateng honest, even though there were moments where we thought Anheliger would get finished, but he was throwing back and connecting as well with some counters. So I think Chad Anheliger's pretty savvy here and will just be the veteran. And I don't think Jose Johnson's ready yet. I think he's still kind of raw to face a decent vet in Chad Anheliger. So I'm gonna lean low to medium confidence Anheliger here as my pick.
For sure, for sure. Do you think you'll have a play for this pick as far as like maybe a betting, like maybe like do you think you'll play him by like decision or anything, or what's your play here on this fight?
This fight, I think it might be just be a money line because I
Okay.
think he's pretty good odds for this fight from last time I checked.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
I think I got in at around between 160 and 190 somewhere there.
Okay. Yeah, not bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think right now, if you just look at the odds, like Jose Johnson, he is like minus 210 right now, right? So almost 2-1 favorite. Pretty decent odds on Chad there if you want to go money line. My breakdown of this fight is Chad is mainly a power kind of striker, relies mostly on his hands. He does hit pretty hard. He has a solid pace also for a power striker. I think he just has kind of okay, maybe below average, but okay takedown defense. Relies more so on getting back up or reversing positions on the ground. He's also pretty average in grappling situations overall, but he seemed to improve since his early days. I think he had like on his career he has five sub losses, but they were all like 8 to 10 years ago. So he hasn't had a sub loss in the last 8 years. Shows pretty good improvement overall for a fighter. and he's 12-6 right now. So the only times that he's really lost is really via the sub, right? So a pretty interesting improvement there. Jose, long rangey striker. I think he mixes in a lot of disciplines of striking. He can box, kickbox, mix in some Muay Thai as well with some elbows and knees. He has a pretty solid Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu background as well, and he can be offensive with his subs. He has 3 subs on his record, and, but he does have 4 sub losses though. So that's I don't know if he's the best defensive striker. I mean, defensive grappler. So he could be a bit hit or miss in that department. I still think that this is going to be a mainly striking matchup, and in a matchup like that, I will lean towards Jose with his range, and I think he might not have the power of Chad, but I still think he does have underrated power. If you see some of his highlights and his knockouts, he does have pretty good power for being how long and lanky he is. And the reason why I think that this is going to be a mainly striking matchup is because Chad has had 0 takedowns in 3 UFC fights, and Jose is more of an opportunistic grappler rather than a grappler who seeks to go out and get those grappling exchanges, right? I don't think he's going to shoot for takedowns that often. So, and also both of these fighters have 7 KOs on their record. So I think that this will be a mainly striking matchup. Right now, my play is leaning towards Jose by decision. Obviously, those props, I don't think that they have dropped yet, if I'm not mistaken. I can check on Bet on. Oh, actually, they have dropped. Let's see what that prop looks like right now. Right now, Jose Johnson by points is plus 185. I think that's decent value there. I mean, I think that that's something that I might look to take a stab at. So yeah, Jose Johnson by decision is going to be the play for me, and right now that is plus 185 on Bet Online. So not too bad of a value right there. Let's move on to the next fight, and I'm kind of wondering why this fight's on the prelims. I think it's going to be a good banger for as long as it lasts. This is going to be Jonathan Pearce versus Joanderson Brito. Jonathan Pearce, better known as JSP, is 14-4, coming off of a 5-fight winning streak. His last fight, he won a decision against Darren the Damage Elkins, 31 years old. He's fighting against Joanderson Brito. 15-3-1. He's coming off a 4-1 in his last 5, and he's coming off of that ground and pound victory over Weston Wilson there. 20 years old, so he will be the slightly younger fighter, and JSP will have a 4-inch height advantage and a 1-inch reach disadvantage. So interesting physical dynamics there. Odds for this fight right now, JSP opened up at a minus 110, and he is now a minus 130 at the time of this video. So nearly a pick and fight right now. I think JSP is a pretty good wrestler, fights with good high grappling and striking pace. I believe he lands 6.11 strikes per 15 minutes. Also lands 5.74 takedowns per 15 minutes. So this guy is all about that action. He's constantly pumping out pace and volume, whether it's a striking matchup or a grappling matchup. I also like that JSP goes for the finish in all phases of the game. He will go for example, he'll go for ground pounds, for TKOs on the ground, and also he'll go for subs on the ground as well. So he does go for the finishes on the feet or the ground, which is something that I really like. He does fight a bit reckless though, but he does have good durability and toughness to weather those storms, to implement this kind of tick for tat style, right? He likes to kind of give one to take one, give one, take one. So I think that that might be a bit of an issue for this fight, just because Brito is a quick twitch athlete, great grappling skills. He will march forward and throw with power to try to take it to the ground, and he has a wide variety of subs on the ground. He's a pretty dangerous guy. He's not the most technical striker. I don't think Brito is the most technical striker, but he has a brawling style where he throws a lot of looping shots. And if those looping shots do hit you, to go along with its powerful kicks, by the way, it could put your lights out. Now, the thing about this fight that's also another interesting dynamic is Brito can get taken down if you pressure and shoot at him. Example, his fight against Bill Algeo, if you actually go watch it, Bill Algeo has a similar frame to JSP, right? Both of them are kind of tall and lanky in a way, and a rangy fighter. And Algeo got I believe, 2 or 3 takedowns on Brito during that fight and actually won a decision. So he won like a 29-28, and one judge even gave him 30-27 on that fight. So I think that if JSP, implements the same game plan that Bill Algeo did, where he's going to try to take him down, try to not let Joanderson Brito catch him with the power, this might be a JSP victory, and it might be a JSP decision. So that's what I'm leaning towards right now is JSP by decision. However, I'm going to take a little bit more time to stew on that just because I think Brito is a pretty dangerous matchup for JSP. And since they both somewhat brawl and Brito has more power, I could also see Brito catching JSP with a heavy shot that could put his lights out. So I'll look in the weigh-ins and face-offs before determining if JSP is a parlay piece. I do like JSP. I mean, I've ridden this guy for a number of fights, and he's always came out victorious. So um, I wouldn't be opposed to kind of playing him again, but I'll wait for the face-offs and weigh-ins to try to see what they look like kind of head to head. Gerard, what's your thoughts on this fight between JSP and Brito here?
Yeah, I'm with you on this fight's going to be Brito's a dangerous opponent for JSP with JSP's fighting style. Uh, one problem that I see here is I was watching some tape and I was even seeing Darren Elkins catching JSP clean on the chin. And if that were Brito throwing that, it might be a different story. So yeah, this is kind of dangerous for JSP. And Brito's no slouch in the grappling. I think he's mainly a grappler as well, who throws a lot of explosive, heavy shots. So I think in this fight, I'm almost certain that Brito will catch Jonathan Pearce from what I've seen, because Pearce, his stand-up defense in terms of boxing, uh, every fight he gets caught, but he kind of relies on that chin to get in close to throw his shots and get those takedowns and wrestling exchanges. So for this, I'm at a low confidence Joanderson Brito just because I like the dog odds, and this could be a bad matchup for Jonathan Pearce. Although Pearce is more talented, but yeah, my pick here is a low confidence Brito.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. I think this is going to be it's going to be a close fight, but it could end decisively for both sides, if that makes sense, right? I could see it kind of ending for Brito if he just kind of gets controlled the whole fight and just doesn't get up, and maybe Pierce even subs him, or it could be where Brito just catches GSP on the feet with his power, and then that could end the fight because the one loss that JSP does have in the UFC, I think he got clipped by Joe Lozon, right? Lauzon, and that was kind of a lucky punch in a way, but I mean, a lucky KO, if you will. But I still think that that's something that could be in play just because of how they both brawl. So it's going to be an interesting fight nonetheless to see how that fight plays out. Next fight here that we have on the prelims still, it's going to be Mick Parkin versus Caio Machado. Mick Parkin, and this is going to be a heavyweight fight. Mick Parkin, 7-0, 5-0 in his last five. He's coming off of that decision victory over Jamal Pogues. He is 20 years old. He's fighting against Caio Machado, 8-1-1, 5-0 in his last five. Coming off of that decision victory in the Contender Series, he is 29 years old, and they're both about the same height and both similar reaches as well. Fight odds for this one was really surprising for the odds when I looked at it. Right now, Mick Parkin is a minus 330 right now, and he opened up at a minus 250. So there was some action already that was played on Mick Parkin as far as the favorite, and people have pushed him all the way to a 3-1 favorite at this point. Gerard, I'll let you start the breakdown for this heavyweight. Hopefully, it's a banger, but I don't think so. I'll let you start off with this breakdown right here. What do you think about this fight between Mick Parkin and Caio Machado here?
This fight, Mick Parkin, he's I'm probably leaning Mick Parkin here, but I think the odds should be closer in this heavyweight fight because Caio throws some wild swinging shots with a lot of power. But to me, Mick Parkin is the more technical and poised fighter here. So he has the cleaner, tighter strikes and not like throwing wide, wild punches. And he's pretty well rounded. He has decent wrestling. Um, mainly for this fight, I'll go with the more patient and poised fighter in this one. Even though it's heavyweights, but I think McParkin's just the better pick here. But the odds aren't that great, in all honesty here. But Machado, he could catch Parkin here, but we've seen time and time again, Parkin can take punches and still survive and win, even win a decision after that. So we've seen Parkin's resilience, and he stays composed. Um, so I'll go with the Tom Aspinall's team train here with Mick Parkin, and they'll continue getting dubs here. So my pick here is Mick Parkin. Uh, about low to medium confidence here.
Yeah, Tom Aspinall is a good guy to have attached to your name right now. So he's the hot new thing in the UFC, and that is something that's pretty good. Now, I mean, Mick Parkin he doesn't have the movement obviously of Tom Aspinall. He's a big 265er, legit heavyweight, solid striking and pace for his size though. So he's not like one of those just like lumbering people who can't do anything. He does have decent 1-2, can dirty boxing, clinches, and really can hold people up against the cage. I think that's the best thing that he probably does. He uses all 265 pounds of him to hold people against the cage and clinch on you and just wear you down and neutralize your offense and slows the fight down to fight at his preferred pace. He does have solid jiu-jitsu. He'll also hunt for subs. When he does get openings and just kind of drags you down into the ground in clinch situations, he can throw up some subs. I mean, I think he's shown to do that throughout his career. Caio, I mean, smaller 250-pound heavyweight relies on more so like the quickness and cardio to outpace bigger heavyweights. I think he does have good range and volume and footwork for a heavyweight though. But I also think that Mick is not a slouch in those areas either, right? So while he does have decent clinch work, takedowns, jujitsu, I feel like Mick is probably better than him in like all areas, maybe except for like just pure power. I think Kyle probably throws just a bit harder, but Mick is the more technical fighter here. He's going to have more areas to win. I also feel like he can just most likely hold this guy up against the cage for 15 minutes and just control him. So I'm going Mick by decision here as far as my pick, but I'm most likely staying away from this because, like you mentioned, the odds right now, Mick Parkin's on minus 330. I think I'll pass on that. I think I'm good on playing a fight, especially as it's going to be a very volatile heavyweight matchup. In my opinion, could turn out to be pretty volatile. Like it could be a split decision for all we know. And right now the props haven't really even dropped yet. I think that when the props do potentially drop, we might see like over 1.5. Hopefully, that might be a good play, but I feel like they might just do this as like over one, like over 2.5, because I think right now there is a one round line that dropped on my bookie, and which is also one of our affiliates, and is over 2.5 at minus 135 right now. So yeah, I don't think we're gonna get the over 1.5, unfortunately. So I think Mick by decision is gonna be my pick, but once again, probably staying away from this and saving my units for other fights on this card. Next up on this card, we have a women's MMA fight at the 135-pound weight division. We have Lucie Pudilová versus Ailin Perez. Lucie is 14-8. She is 3-2 in her last five, coming off of that split decision loss slash potential robbery to Jocelyn Edwards. She's 29 years old, fight against Ailin Perez. On Tapology here, it says her nickname is Nurmagomedov. I wonder if that's actually true. She's 8-2. She is 3-2 in her last five, and she's coming off of that dominating decision victory over Ashley Evans Smith. She is 29 years old, so both of them are actually pretty the same age. Lucie will have a 3-inch height advantage and a slight reach advantage there. Odds for this fight right now, I believe that Ailin Perez is the minus 175 favorite, but she actually opened up at a plus 142 underdog. So line movement flip right there. Now, Lucie, this is actually her second stint in the UFC, if I remember correctly. She is a striker who relies on more so her power shots to change the trajectory of the fight. She has fought with a lower volume pace style in her second stint in the UFC. When she does land, though, it shows. And also, I think Lucie has really been improving in her grappling as well. I think in her last couple fights, she's had couple of takedowns each fight. So she has had 4 takedowns in the last 2 fights. So it shows that she's constantly improving, and she's only 29. I mean, she's not like super old, and this is her second stint in the UFC. So it does show that she's improving. Ailin Perez, I mean, good stocky size and strength for the weight division. She's mostly a grappler, though. She does have improved striking that complements her grappling. I think in her last fight, she developed a pretty decent jab as well, but she's mainly a grappler. If you saw that fight against Ashley Evans Smith, she had 10 takedowns against her. So it shows that she does have good cardio and pressure to last all 15 minutes using that game plan. I think that she also controlled Ashley Evans Smith for 11 minutes out of the 15-minute fight. So it shows that she also just has good cardio overall to last all 15 minutes. I do think that Lucie is better than Ashley, though, and Ashley potentially could be pretty rusty and a bit washed after the 3-year layoff. So I think this is going to be just a much different opponent than what Perez might be used to from her last opponent. I'm probably going to pass on this fight just because I'm good. I'm probably good on women's MMA in general, unless it's like an over piece that I really like. The official pick here is Lucie by decision. I will go with the dog odds here. I will probably look at the over 2.5, honestly, as a parlay piece. I do like the value there. I believe right now the value on the over 2.5, it's a minus 275. So I think you can easily stuff that in the parlay because I think that Lucie will, like, if Ashley Evans Smith survived for, all 3 rounds, I think Lucie will be able to survive as well. And I think Ailin Perez will also be able to survive. So give me the over 2.5 as a potential parlay piece, and I'll just move on to the next fight. Gerard, what are your thoughts right here on this women's MMA fight between Lucie and Ailin Perez here?
So Lucie Pudilová, she kind of started off as a striker, and she has decent striking. But I'm not sure if she has the power to get Ailin Perez's respect. And as far as her recent fights, she kind of likes herself to be a grappler, doing more takedowns and some ground and pounds, and even looking for submissions now. So we see improvements in Lucie's game for sure. But those fighters that she was taking down and uh, dominating in terms of grappling, those were mostly strikers. And in this fight against Ailin, I don't know if she'll be able to take Ailin Perez down as easily because she's a wrestler and she's kind of thick.
Yeah.
So she'll be much harder to take down. And Ailin Perez seems to be improving in terms of the striking. I noticed that as far as her stand-up defense, she's kind of smart and not overextending or taking too much risk. Really, she's just setting up for the takedowns usually. And in this fight, I would bank more on Ailin Perez taking down Lucie than Lucie taking down Ailin in this fight. So I would lean. This is women's MMA, so I'm gonna lean low confidence Ailin Perez, but I'll probably like you skip because yeah, last time I picked Women's MMA, Mackenzie Dern, man,
Oh
not so
no.
good, but yeah. Oh no. So I'm probably gonna pass on women's MMA because yeah, but my pick here is Ailin Perez, and yeah, that's how I see this fight.
What do you think about the over that I mentioned?
The over, yeah, I kind of agree with you. I think this will go to a decision. Yeah, I think this will go to a decision. They're both pretty. Both probably going to survive in this fight. I think. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, I think that's going to be one of my parlay anchors, so I'm gonna stuff that into parlays for sure. Next fight that we have on the prelims, and by the way, guys, we have I think 14 total fights on this fight card, so just get ready for action-packed Saturday. Um, right now, we have Nikolas Motta versus Trey Ogden. Nikolas Motta, he's 13-5, 3-2 in his last five. He's coming off of that loss where he got knocked out by Manuel Torres. He's 30 years old. He's fighting against Trey Ogden, Samurai Ghost, 16-6, 3-2 in his last five. He's coming off that decision loss against Ignacio Bamajones. He's 34 years old. He's going to be the slightly taller fighter here, 2-inch height advantage, and also a 1.5-inch reach advantage there. Fight odds for this fight right now, I believe that Motta is actually the favorite right now, if I'm not mistaken. I think he's like minus 129. He actually opened up at a minus 225. So people have been liking the dog odds on Trey Ogden. And I actually agree with them. I mean, Trey is a grappler first kind of fighter, but I think he does have pretty good athleticism. If you look at how he moves and how he fights, I think he's a pretty good athlete. He's also a decent striker for being someone who is a kind of a grappling heavy fighter. Decent power in his strikes. He also has a good amount of clubs and subs in his career. If you look at some of his victories, the one area where he does need to improve upon, though, is that he has a 14% takedown accuracy. So that's like Mackenzie Dern status, right? That's not good. So we don't want that the percentage of a takedown accuracy. But the thing that I will say about him is that he does shoot for those blast single double legs to try to get to the fight of the ground, and he commits to them. So even though he has a bad takedown accuracy, he will commit to getting things on the ground when he sees an opening for a level change. He does have a tendency to not push the best pace though on the feet and can have bouts of inactivity while he's patiently waiting to level change for a takedown. I think that sometimes he does wait a little too much for my taste, and it could look bad against a fighter who pressures him on the feet. I don't know if that'll be that much of an issue here, just because Mata, I think he's a good striker. He is explosive with his strikes, good power behind his strikes as well. But he also is a patient striker who likes to wait for a time to explode in furies and like kind of flurries and like kill shots, right? So I think that both these guys will be somewhat patient and potentially even hesitant because Mata, I don't think he's ever been taken down the UFC yet, but he hasn't really been tested as far as his takedowns yet, right? I mean, I don't know if he's even been shot a take like someone's even shot a takedown against him yet. So I think yeah, one his first fight, someone shot a takedown against him, and then he stuffed it, and that's pretty much it. I think that Trey Ogden will attempt more than one takedown in this fight. I guarantee that. So right now, I'm going with Trey Ogden by decision. Depending on what the props look like, as far as the odds, I might play that just because I think that styles make fights, and I think both these guys are going to be patient and potentially hesitant. And the last time that we saw that happen, especially Nicholas Motta, I mean, he's coming off a KO where he got elbowed, right, against Manuel Torres. So the last time that Trey Ogden fought a guy who was hesitant was Daniel Zuhelber, and he did a pretty good job winning that decision. I think he might do the same thing here. So give me Trey Ogden by decision. I'll look at what the odds are when that prop drops. But right now, that's my pick. Gerard, what do you think about this fight between Ogden and Motta here?
This fight, I probably would lean Mata, but for Trey Ogden fights, it seems like all these fights are kind of just coin flips in
Yeah,
terms of judging. So I don't really know how this fight's gonna go. But Trey Ogden seems to always get his opponents to not play their game,
hmm
and even against those explosive prospects, they were sucked into Trey Ogden's style of just mostly patiently watching around and stuff, even if the other guy's the more explosive and dangerous fighter. So Nikolas Motta, he came off of some knockouts, losses, but he has the more heavy-handed finishing ability here. But against a Trey Ogden, I don't know if he'll be able to do that because Trey Ogden kind of just goes through decisions most of the time. And like you said, this could be like a good chunk of the time is them looking at each other, waiting to counter when the other guy's not even throwing anything. So yeah, yeah, I'm probably gonna pass on this, but I'm leading Nicholas Motta because I see that he'll probably have the more impactful moments in this fight if he were to let his offense go moments of the fight. But yeah, this will probably go to a decision, and it'll probably be a hard fight to judge. So yeah, that's how I see this.
for sure. Yeah. And also when the props drop, I'm going to be looking at the over unders for that too. I think it'll be a really interesting to see what the lines look like for the over unders. Next fight that we have on the card, I believe that one fight that we had was a Cesar Almeida and Christian Leroy Duncan. However, I learned a couple hours ago that that fight was canceled. Did you see that, Gerard?
I didn't know. This is first time hearing about it.
Okay, for sure. Well, breaking news, it's been canceled. I think Cesar Almeida got injured, so that's one fight
Mm.
less to break down. Who knows if they're gonna, do a replacement for Caesar for someone to fight CLD? But for now, that fight is canceled, and we'll just move on to the main card because that's where we really want to get into. The main card right now is Uroš Medić versus Jonny Parsons. This is going to be the first fight on the main card. It's going to be a welterweight matchup. Uroš Medić 9-1. He is 4-1 in his last five. Coming off of that spinning like back fist or elbow to Matthew Selmasberger, pretty highlight worthy KO there. He's fighting against Jonny Parsons, the Sluggernaut. What a great nickname. 9-3, 5-0 in his last five. He's coming off that KO victory over Danny Roberts. He's going to be the slightly older fighter here at 32. Medic will be the taller fighter, and he has a reach advantage. Fight odds for this fight is going to be minus 235 for Uroš Medić right now. He opened up at minus 275. I'll let you start off this breakdown right here. What do you think about this fight between Uroš Medić and Jonny Parsons, Gerard?
So the doctor versus the slugger knot.
Slug or not?
Um, I like Medic's striking. He's gonna be the more precise technical striker. Johnny Parsons is a kickboxer himself. He has decent kicks. I like Johnny Parsons' kicks, but I think the what I like most about Parson is his chin, his chin and his toughness, I guess. And against Uroš Medić, this is probably going to be mostly a striking match. So in a striking match, I would go Uroš Medić here. He'll look to be a doctor and be surgical with his striking here. Johnny Parsons would make it look better if he makes this into a more of a dogfight and more of a dirty striking exchange and not so clean. Um, I'm at a medium confidence that Medic will win this. As far as Johnny Parsons, I think Johnny Parsons is actually a tough out. So it'll be hard for Medic to get him out of there. And I'm actually more confident in the over 1.5
Mm.
than I am with Medić. So yeah, I'm at a medium confidence on Medić and a little bit more confident on the over on this fight.
Yeah, I like the overplay. Right now, the over 1.5 is minus 140 on Bet Online, so not bad value there. Yeah, looking at the tape of this Uroš Medić, a clean striker. I mean, he's a very technical kind of guy, clean punches and kicks, does a good job mixing all these strikes up, like head kicks, body kicks, leg kicks, punches. He can do it all. I think he also can, as you see in his last fight, he can throw in some wild, flashy kill shots, right? That spinning back
Mm,
fist over Semi the Jedi, and that was a highlight right there. I just watched it again, and it was so clean. He also has a bouncy stance and is pretty light on his feet, something I also really like. Um, Johnny brawler through and through. He loves to get in those firefights. Really loves to bang. Good power for his shots at 170 pounds. He can actually, if you watch his fights, he can be kind of clean in his technique. But I think this guy just loves to bang and brawl, and he just loves to get in your face. So once he gets into the ring, I think he just throws everything out the window and just brawls. That's where I think this fight will be a stylistic difference, right? I think Uroš will be the one who's going to try to fight from the outside and try to just pick Johnny apart and hopefully just knock him out over the course of 15 minutes, maybe get to a decision victory. And Johnny obviously is going to be the one who's going to try to get in Uroš's face, make it a dirty kind of fight, make it a kind of ugly fight, if you will. It is going to be a striker versus striker matchup. And just for my philosophy in these kind of fights, I'm always going to lean towards the cleaner fighter to implement his game plan. I think it's just going to be easier for him to implement his game plan rather than Johnny to implement his game plan because Uroš is really clean. And, I know that Johnny, like you mentioned, is somewhat of a durable guy and he is a tough out, but it all really it takes is one clean shot. And I know that Uroš has very clean striking. So my pick right now is Uroš by knockout. I will probably hold off on this as a parlay piece until I see the weigh-ins or the face-offs. But right now, my pick is Uroš by knockout. And right now, the let me see what the odds are for that because I believe the odds dropped for the knockout prop already. Plus 135. So I
mm.
wish it was a little higher actually. So it's just a little close actually. So they might think that this guy's gonna get knocked out for sure. But yeah, plus 135. Not bad. Yeah, so I might potentially play that. Um, yeah, so that's gonna be my pick there. Let's move on to the next fight right now on the main card. We have another women's MMA match. It's going to be Amanda Ribas versus Luana Pinheiro. Ribas obviously is 11-4. She is 2-3 in her last fives, coming off of that KO loss to Macy Barber. And I believe that she was fighting at 125. Now she's moving back to 115, right? So this is going to be moving back down away for her, where she's going to be the larger person now. She's going to fight against Luana Pinheiro, 11-1, 5-0 in her last five, coming off that split decision victory over Michelle Waterson Gomez. They're both the same age. I think that Amanda's going to have the reach advantage here at 4 inches. So that's a pretty interesting reach advantage there. The odds for this fight right now is Amanda's minus 235. She opened up at minus 140. So she opened up at almost near pick'em, and now she's been bet to a 2-1 favorite there. Um, I think Amanda's a pretty well-rounded fighter. I mean, she's a grappler, but she has improved her striking throughout her career. She has pretty good volume as well. I think that if you look at how she fights, she pumps out a lot of strikes, right? She's not just a grappler only anymore, which is something that, like, shows that she's improved throughout her career. The only I think one of the bad things that she does do is she tends to get herself into brawls, and she's been knocked out 3 times. So I don't think that that's a good recipe is to brawl, and because she has proven to be a bit chinny. She got knocked out by Marina Rodriguez, knocked out by Macy Barber, knocked out by Polyana Viana. I mean, she does get knocked out. So she does like to brawl. I think that moving back to 115 though is going to be a positive for her, just because I feel like her frame is better at 115 as opposed to 125, where she was facing all that power. Um, Now, granted, Luana is a powerful girl. You know, she strikes with good power, good takedowns as well. Swings pretty heavily with the power and tries to get the fight to the ground by coming forward and relying on her chin to take shots. She was taken down by Karate Hottie though, and I think that her takedown defense here will be tested by the biggest Ribas here. I think that okay, so honestly, I was on the Karate Hottie side of that fight. She was like a big underdog, and I thought that she won that fight. So I I think she might have got robbed, honestly. Um, Luana's coming off of that kind of close win, which I thought was a robbery. So I'm thinking that this might be a buy low on Ribas. So I'll go Ribas by decision. Um, Probably not going to play because I don't trust Ribas that much, but I believe that the over 2.5 might be something that could be a good parlay piece. Right now it's minus 210. And the reason why I'm thinking it could be a parlay piece is because Ribas, coming off of that KO to Macy Barber, right? I think that she wants to start off her new stint, this next upcoming stint at 115, off with a dub. So she's going to be a little bit more conservative, hopefully not get into a brawl with this girl and just take her down, control position, land some ground and pound, maybe go for a sub or something. But I think that she's going to go for more of a just guaranteed win over trying to brawl. So I think the over 2.5 could be good here. Gerard, what are your thoughts on this fight between Ribas and Luana here?
Amanda Ribas, this is probably a better weight division for her. Um, she looks to be more well-rounded than before, from what I remember, and she did drop Viviani Arujo in that fight. And for this fight, Luana Pinheiro, uh, I guess they're both grapplers, right? So, but Amanda's probably got the advantage there. But when I watch Luana, she kind of picks her spots pretty nicely from what I can tell. She's not necessarily a striker, but when she takes her shots, she kind of sets it up with low kicks, and then she kind of gets in your face in an offbeat rhythm and surprises you with a blitz. And Amanda Ribas is, like you said, is known to get into some of these brawls. And against Luana, I don't think she wants to do that with Luana, because Luana, when she throws, she throws with intent, and that intent is to knock you out or drop you with a lot of power. So especially, I think Luana can catch Amanda in that exchange where Luana does blitz and find Hiba's chin. So this fight, actually kind of like the dog in Luana Pinheiro. I think she might be a good dog in this fight. And this isn't my most confident play, but I think I'm going Luana Pinheiro, low confidence. Uh, just because the way she fights, I kind of see how um, it fits the type of style of the stand-up defense that Ribas has that Luana's style can have success in. So I'll probably my pick here is Luana Pinheiro, low confidence, but it's women's MMA, so you never know.
Yeah, definitely. And I was just overlooking the odds on the 2.5 that I mentioned right now. Actually, it opened up at minus 300. Now it's at minus 210. So I guess people are thinking that this will also turn into another brawl potentially. It still might go decision, but yeah, it might be a little bit more dangerous than I first thought. So I'll keep an eye on that, see where it goes going forward. Moving on to the next fight on the main card. This is going to be the third fight on the main card, so we're almost the co-main and the main right now. Actually, four fights, sorry. So we have four more fights. We have Payton Talbott versus Nick Aguirre. Payton Talbott, 6-0, 5-0 in his last five. He's coming off that decision victory over Reyes Cortez on the Contender Series, 25 years old. He is facing up against Nick Slick Aguirre, 7-1, 4-1 in his last five. He's coming off that decision loss against Dan Argueta. I believe he was coming in a short notice in that fight. He'll be the slightly older fighter here, 27, 25. And Payton Talbot actually will have a 1 inch height advantage, and I believe Nick will have a 4 inch reach advantage here, or 3.5 inch reach advantage. Right now, the odds, and these are some, man, this is some crazy odds. So Payton Talbot opened up at a -550, and now he's a -850. That's pretty crazy. So, yeah, a -850 right now for Payton Talbot. Uh, Gerard, yeah, I'll let you break down this fight first. What do you think about Talbot and Aguirre here?
Peyton Talbot, I think he's a lock. I think it makes sense why the odds went so high. I guess there is a little bit of hype, but he's not really that well known yet. I think the UFC is trying to make his stardom rise a little bit, and it might end up being like a spectacular fashion type of night for him against Nick Aguirre. Um, Talbot, he kind of reminds me, his style kind of reminds me like a very raw Sean Strickland, like always coming forward in your face, insane gas tank. Like his last fight, I don't even think he was really breathing that heavy in the third round. And the other guy, Cortez, Tracy's brother, he was just breathing so hard. And then you look at Peyton, he's like hardly even breathing. So he has an insane gas tank for the type of pace he comes at you, just walking you down and mixing in a whole bunch of different strikes. Like his dynamic striking kind of reminds me of a very raw Adesanya type of style.
Sure.
So you have a mixture hybrid of a style of Sean Strickland pace and a Adesanya dynamic striking and kickboxing and stuff. And I seen in his last fight, his leg was caught up in the air, and then he did a flip to get out of it, a back flip,
Mhm.
and then continue standing up and getting the stand up, walking down Cortez. So he's probably has a spectacular future ahead of him. He's probably a rising star, still young. And Nick Aguirre, um, yeah, I'm just not sold on him. I'm not even sure how great of a grappler he is, although he did take Dan Argueta's back. But that could be just that Dan Argueta was getting too aggressive at times. But yeah, Peyton Talbot, I think he's all she wrote. He I think he'll live up to what people are thinking about him. The -800, possibly a buy low. No, I'm just kidding. But I think down the line he'll have a lot of fans if he continues to get some dubs here. But yeah, yeah, I think he's a lock, but the odds are so wide that it goes against my betting principles. But yeah, I like Talbot.
So I'm assuming that you're not sticking his money line in a parlay
Not money line. Probably a finish.
for sure. Yeah. So the only ways that I would consider sticking people in a parlay at that price, if it was the case in point, was the Rebecca fight, right, against Roosevelt Roberts. That I think Rebecca
Mm.
was like a -900, and I mean Rebecca, he fought a guy on short notice, multiple fights in the UFC, so you have proven like tape and just like proven record, right? So that's why I think it's a little wild that Peyton Talbot is a -850 right now, right? So you're telling me that Talbot is going to finish? Is he gonna finish this guy pretty much in round one? Like, is that what's gonna happen? Because I knew for the right Becky fight that he was probably gonna like that he was gonna finish that Roberts guy in round one.
Mm.
I have my doubts on whether Payton's gonna finish this guy in round one. It might be like round two or something, maybe. Might even go decision for all I know. Payton is a good striker. He does have good pace and flashy strikes. Pumps out a extremely high volume. Likes to switch some stances as well. Really good movement, footwork, good takedown defense, and as you mentioned, good does a good job of kind of working his way back up. Right. Um, I do think that he does need to work on his grappling overall, though, but it is improving. That I think Cortez did take him down once, if I'm not mistaken, in that fight. But he did a good job of kind of working himself back up and, obviously just dominating the rest of the fight. I think that the price is just what it is, just because also I think they're factoring in that this Nick Aguirre guy probably not UFC caliber. I think that they, got him on short notice against Dan Argueta, built him up, and now they're basically asking him again and say, hey, like, can you do us another solid of hyping up another prospect? So, when I do watch Nick, I mean, supposedly he's a grappler, but I think that he doesn't really even have that great of a grappling ability, no striking ability whatsoever. I just don't see what he does well in the UFC. So I'm pretty sure they're, like you mentioned, they're hyping this Payton guy up and trying to get him an easy dub and trying to move his career along. Um, Pick here is Payton by decision or KO, but I think I'm going to pass on this fight overall, and I just want to see, I want to see more of Payton before I trust him in a parlay at that price of like a minus 850. So yeah, let me watch him, and we'll see what he can do for us for the future, at least for me. So I'll watch the fight just to kind of see him for the future, but for now I'm passing on this fight. Next fight here that we have on the main card is going to be a third fight on the main card right now. It's going to be Jordan Levitt versus Chase Hooper, battle of the jiu-jitsu nerds. But Jordan Levitt, 11-2. He's 3-2 in his last five. He's actually coming off that KO victory over Victor Martinez. I believe he had like a knee and then some punches. He's fighting against Chase Hooper, 12-3-1. He's 3-2 in his last five. I think that his last fight he moved up to lightweight, and he beat Nick Fiore by decision. And I believe that he like set like the third most strikes landed in a UFC lightweight bout. So he hit Nick 217 times, which is pretty decent there. Like I mentioned, I mean, I think that this fight will be a battle of the jiu-jitsu nerds. I mean, both these guys love to grapple. Chase Hooper right now is a minus 216, and he opened up at a minus 210. So not too much action, kind of either side. It's kind of settled to minus 210, if you will, or minus 212. Um, Now, although both these guys love to grapple, they're both coming off of pretty good striking performances, right? I mean, Jordan with the KO, Chase coming off of that kind of record-setting bout there. I think the move to 155 actually has made Chase much better. He's improved his chin, cardio, durability, pace. You saw that last fight; he wasn't tired at all. He was constantly pumping out the volume. Chase does mainly strike for the head, and I think that Jordan does do a better job of mixing in his strikes to the body, legs. For example, if you watch the fight with Jordan Levitt versus Trey Ogden, Jordan Levitt basically won that fight with leg kicks. That's all the strikes that he landed on Trey Ogden, and he won a split decision victory there. Now, both of these guys can get grappled on, right? So, they can both get taken down and, potentially even get subbed. I believe that Jordan Levitt, if you watched the fight against Paddy Pimblett, he was taken down and then eventually just like, subbed in one of those grappling exchanges by rear naked choke. Um, I do think that Chase is probably more defensively sound on the ground. He can kind of fend off more of a kind of submission defense, if you will. I would actually, at these odds, I would lean towards Jordan Levitt here, just because I think that he has a better variety of striking, and I don't know if Chase, we haven't really seen it too much of where Chase is gonna be able to grapple someone at 155 yet, right? In his last fight against Nick Aguirre, or Nick Fiore, sorry, he did land one takedown, but he was also taken down 4 times by Nick. So that's something that's interesting as well. I mean, Nick actually had more control time than him. So I'm really going to be interested to see if, he can take down and kind of, control Jordan Levitt in a way. So that remains to be seen. So that's why I'm leaning towards Jordan Levitt by decision. But I'm probably going to pass on this fight, though. I don't know if I can trust Jordan Levitt just yet with my units there. So pick here is Jordan Levitt by decision, but I'm probably going to pass on this fight. What do you think about this fight, Gerard?
This fight, I think Chase Hooper, I guess in this division, this higher weight division, he's much better in terms of like his physicals and his stamina and his chin. Um, and his striking looks like is much improved, but still remains to be seen. Um, Jordan Levitt, he got that fantastic KO finish, but I don't even think he's really an explosive striker. And for Chase Hooper, what we've seen is he has trouble against twitchy strikers, and Jordan Levitt doesn't check any of those boxes. So I think Chase Hooper will have a better go uh, in this division and against Jordan Levitt. And I think Chase Hooper is just different on the ground. I think we've seen Patty Pimblett take Jordan Levitt. I think Chase Hooper is just that much different than I think he's much better than Patty Pimblett on the ground. And so yeah, he just puts on that pace and those positions. Like it's very impressive. I think Jordan Levitt will get tired on the ground with Chase Hooper doing all kinds of position switching and submission attempts. So I'm gonna lean Chase Hooper here, but it's a low to medium confidence, but I'm leaning Chase Hooper.
For sure, for sure. Yeah, it's gonna be an interesting fight no matter what. So I'm actually gonna tune in for that one because Chase Hooper, he actually came in as a very hype kind of prospect, right? Came in pretty young at the UFC, and he's had his up and downs. But yeah, if he can get this victory at 155 over a guy who's coming off of a KO dub, I think that can set himself up pretty nicely for his career moving forward. So yeah, definitely interested to watch that fight. We're either going to get a Chase Hooper dub or Jordan Levitt's going to twerk. So no matter what, I'm going to be tuning in for that. Um, Next fight that we have on the main card is going to be the co-main event: Jake Matthews versus Michael Morales. And this fight right here, it's going to be Jake Matthews, 19-6. He's 3-2 in his last five. He's coming off of that rear naked choke submission over Darius Flowers, fighting against Michael Morales, 15-0, undefeated, 5-0 in his last five. He's coming off that decision victory over Max Griffin. Michael Morales will be the younger fighter here by 5 years. He's going to be the taller fighter, and he has the 7-inch reach advantage here. Odds for this fight: Michael Morales right now is a minus 280 on Bet Online. Um, yeah, I think that for this fight, I'll let you go ahead and take this one too. What do you think about this fight between Michael Morales, hype prospect, over Jake Matthews here?
So Jake Matthews, he's he's a good fighter. He's a pretty good fighter. He manages distance and he's pretty calculated throughout a fight. Um, but he still, despite his pretty solid stand up, he does get hit. And I think against that 7-inch reach you said,
Yep.
yeah, that's gonna be yeah. That I don't know if he'll be ever to measure distance against a young, explosive, pretty quick Michael Morales who's 15-0. And I think that 15-0 is legit. I think he's decorated in terms of striking and as well grappling, if I'm not mistaken. And he uses all of his tools. And Jake Matthews, he has solid striking. It's just I've seen him get dropped too many times, I think. And in a fight like this against a more dangerous Michael Morales compared to a Semmelsberger, Um, Michael Morales is going to connect, and I think it'll look much more devastating than the knockdowns that Semmelsberger had. So, yeah, my pick here is Michael Morales. And yeah, I think Michael Morales is going to live up to the hype. And yeah, he's not like a Gabriel Bonfim or any of those other guys who choked the moment. But yeah, we got Michael Morales here. He'll he'll pull through in this co-main event. So yeah, he's a lock.
For sure. Yeah. Spoiler alert, I also agree with you. I think Michael Morales is a lock here. Um, I think this fight is going to be really similar to the Matthew Semelsberger fight. And just to let you guys know, I was on Jake Matthews on that fight. I thought he was going to win because he was coming off a really impressive win against Andre Fiallo. But turns out we were all overrating Andre Fiallo, right? Because just check this out. I mean, Jake Matthews was a plus 107 against Andre Fiallo, so he was an underdog. Next fight against Matthew Selinsberger, he was a minus 290 favorite. So we all thought this guy, oh man, this guy's all put it all together. He's coming to his own. He's mixing his striking with his grappling now. Because I mean, Jake Matthews, he's been fighting the UFC for a pretty long while, right? I think he's been fighting the UFC since 2014. So he's damn near 10 years already. He fought mainly at the 155, and then he moved up to 170. So I mean, we all thought that he was going to put it together and all that, but man, he just showed up to that Selinsberger fight and just looked lost out there. I mean, Selinsberger was just like dropping him at will. I was actually surprised that he even survived that fight because I also had the over on that fight, so I was like, man, I hope this guy just survives, and he ended up he did survive, thankfully. But yeah, that fight just showed me that man, I don't know if I don't know if he's that guy. I think that he's just one of these like journeyman kind of fighters as far as his skill set and his potential even. And Michael Morales is just a little different. I mean, Morales, like you mentioned, also he has a pretty good pedigree as far as his grappling and wrestling. I believe that he's like a nationally like ranked Ecuadorian wrestler or something like that, like almost like Olympic level. So I mean, he has all the wrestling credentials that you need. Also has pretty powerful strikes, long rangy fighter. You saw in that last fight against Max Griffin, who's a pretty. I think Max Griffin is like an underrated vet, and Michael Morales won that decision easy, in my opinion. So, yeah, I just think that overall, Michael Morales has Jake Matthews covered in like every area. Um, the only area where he might not have uh, an advantage in is like pure jiu-jitsu. But even then, I don't think that fight's even going to go that direction. I believe that Michael will try to knock Jake out. And given what we saw between his fight against, Matt Semmelsberger, I think that he might not be able to survive it. Like you mentioned, these shots that are coming from Michael Morales. So big here is Michael Morales by KO. I believe that Michael Morales is a good money line to put in your parlays. Even right now, he's a minus. Let me check the odds again. He's a minus. Let's see here, minus 280. So I mean, I think that's pretty decent odds. Um, Michael Morales by KO even is a plus 135, so similar to the Uroš Medić one, right? Like they pretty much think that this guy's potentially going to get knocked out. So yeah, give me Michael Morales as a lock here, as a parlay lock. Let's move on to the next fight here. It's going to be the last fight of the main card and the main event as well. The fight's going to be Brandon Allen versus Paul Bearju Craig. Brandon Allen, 22-5, 5-0 in his last five. He's coming off of that submission rear naked choke victory over Bruno Silva. He's fighting against Paul Craig, 17-6-1, 3-2 in his last five. Coming off that win over Andre Muniz, ground pound victory. And I believe that was his first fight in middleweight. So he went down a weight because he used to fight in 205. As far as the odds for this fight, I mean, this is another one where I'm actually kind of surprised by the odds here. So Brandon Allen opened up at a minus 350. on Bet Online, and he got bet to a minus 500 instantly. Then he's now settled kind of back to a kind of a minus 450 kind of range. So I think that's some interesting line movement there. I mean, Brandon Allen, he does have an all around kind of skill set. He can do it all: striking, grappling, submissions. He does like to, he tends to get himself into kind of 50-50 brawls, if you will. So he does rely on that chin a lot. If you saw his last fight against Bruno Silva, that was, I mean, I think I had the over, and I was worried the whole time. It's like, and I ended up being wrong, obviously, because the fight ended up in round one, right? So it was a brawl right away. Like he was just like exchanging shots with Bruno Silva of all people, relying on his chin, and he actually did it. I mean, he actually like hurt Bruno Silva and then choked him out. So big props to him for even doing that game plan and pulling out a dub there. Um, I think that Paul Craig, though, he's just showed a lot of improvement in that last fight at middleweight, especially. Both these guys they fought and Andre Muniz, right? And I feel like Brandon Allen had a tougher time with Muniz than Paul Craig did, in my opinion. I mean, Paul Craig just kind of beasted Muniz. So I mean, he kind of showed that, hey, like I fought a 205 for a reason. So obviously, I mean, both these guys are really decorated in terms of like their jujitsu and their submissions. At the moment, I will probably trust Brandon Allen's striking a little bit more, obviously, over Paul Craig's, even though Paul Craig looks like he's improved a lot. I don't know if I could kind of get all of those losses that Paul Craig has had over his career out of my mind. Like this guy he was a total Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu nerd at 205. And, I remember the last fight that he fought at 205 was when like he caught Johnny Walker's leg and just held onto his leg while getting like hammer fisted on the ground. So like I don't know if I can get that loss out of my head. Like that's just not a good striking strategy, not a good striking defense. Um, I will say that I'll probably go Brandon Allen. I'll probably wait for the face-offs and the weigh-ins to put him in my parlays. But right now the pick is Brandon Allen. What do you think about this fight in the main event, Gerard?
My pick is probably also going to be Brandon Allen, but I might stay away or just live bet this.
Yeah.
Um, reason being, I think Paul Craig is going to be obviously I think he'll be the bigger guy coming down at middleweight, and people forget Paul Craig's been in there with some killers, so he has experience with some quality fighters. And Brendan Allen, he's on a streak right now, but this is a 5 round fight. And if this were a 3 round fight, I would be much more confident in Brendan Allen. But in a 5 round fight, Paul Craig to me seems like a guy who can grind out wins. And if this fight prolongs into the third, fourth, and fifth round, I think Paul Craig will have the better edge in terms of winning rounds or finding a submission. So yeah, I'm low confidence Brendan Allen. Paul Craig is live in this fight, in a 5 round fight against Brendan Allen. I think Paul Craig is pretty patient. And if he stays patient and makes this fight prolonged, uh, I might live bet Paul Craig. So yeah, those are my thoughts on this one.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is just a hard fight to cap, honestly, because we just have we do have some unknown variables, right? Like this is going to be Paul Craig's second fight in middleweight. Uh, like you mentioned, he has fought some killers like Jamal Hill, Magomed and Ankalaev at 205, Johnny Walker, obviously, and Brendan Allen has showed improved striking. Like I feel like if he was able to hurt Bruno Silva, will he be able to do the same thing to Paul Craig? I mean, I don't know. At those odds, like I'm leaning towards like passing on this fight too, maybe just watching it. So Yeah, maybe
Mm.
it'll be a good live bet situation, like you mentioned. I think it could be a live bet opportunity to see how the fight's going first before we dive into something like this. Well,
Would
that
you
does about, yeah.
wait? Uh, would you do the over, or what? What does the over look like?
It's 1.5 right now, so I'm just looking to,
1.5?
yeah, yeah.
Oh,
So
maybe 1.5 actually.
over one,
Maybe sprinkle sprinkle a quarter or something.
yeah, it's minus 110 right now. I mean, it's a pick 'em for the
Mm.
over 1.5.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I mean, I don't think this is gonna go scorecards, man. I feel like I feel like
Yeah.
either Allen's gonna knock this guy out or Paul Craig is gonna somehow pull him into a submission. Maybe I think that's it's either one
Mhm.
of those. I'm just leaning towards Allen knockout right now, just because he hurt
Mhm.
Bruno Silva, and I don't know if I trust Paul Craig's like striking ability. You know, like is he going to be able to hurt Brendan Allen on the feet? We'll see. Maybe he will, because he has like the power coming down from 205, right? But
Mhm.
yeah, and Brendan Allen also kind of fights a little bit recklessly on the feet too. So I mean, he's been knocked out by Sean Strickland, by Chris Curtis. Like, yeah, I don't know. This is a tough one to cap, man. But
Mhm.
yeah. Yeah, but other than that, I mean, this about does it for the breakdown of UFC Fight Night, Allen versus Craig. Going to be a very interesting fight card. We have 13 fights overall, so very action packed. Tune in. Before we leave, please like, comment, subscribe for this video. Also for the channel overall. We've been getting some pretty good traction for some of the videos, and we would love to continue that momentum going forward. It will really help us make more content for you guys and start breaking down more fights for you guys, giving good plays and bets as well. So please tune in, like, comment, subscribe for the video. It will really help the movement the channel out. Gerard, do you have any last thoughts before we wrap up?
Um, I mean, if you like what we're putting out, like, don't forget to share to anybody who likes this type of content and likes breakdowns and predictions. So yeah, we'd appreciate it if you like, share, subscribe. So yeah, that's what I got.
Definitely, definitely. And subscribe to both channels, by the way. We have Pure Picks MMA, our main channel, and also our Clips channel, Pure Pickers. So please subscribe to both channels. They both have amazing content. Until then, until the fight night, we'll wrap it up here. And best of luck to everybody. We'll be back for some best bets and some picks and parlays later on in the week. Have fun, everybody, and once again, best of luck.